Did you begin to get a sense about, in any way, the conduct of the people, the suspicious people, and the frequency of their visiting, or did you begin to get a sense of their actions and whether those had become bolder or they had become more frequent or whatnot?
It was, I'm not sure if it was getting more, it was staying frequent, but yeah, there was more stuff being, like, that was around the time that the purse was stolen. I heard that, I want to say I heard a trailer was stolen or a boat or something was stolen at the point. You know, mom's telling me more frequently, there's, you know, she's hearing of more things being taken, being stolen, and more suspicious persons lurking around around that time.
All right. I want to move to a different topic. Have you ever had any law enforcement training?
I have.
Okay. Where did you receive that training?
In the United States Coast Guard.
And did you attend any kind of school to be trained for the Coast Guard for law enforcement purposes?
Yes.
What's the name of the school that you attended?
It was the basic boarding officer course, and then there was following extra classes with it, but it was at the Maritime Law Enforcement Training Center.
Where was that located?
Charleston, South Carolina.
Okay. Did you serve in the Coast Guard?
I did.
What was your dates of active duty?
March of 2007 to June or July of 2016.
Okay. In general, did you have duties other than law enforcement type duties in the Coast Guard?
Yes.
Can you name the category of the type of duty that you had?
Yeah, so my rating, which is my average job in the Coast Guard, I was a machinery technician, I was a mechanic. It was my 9 to 5, I guess you would call it.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And did, other than going out and doing law enforcement type things, did you do any search or rescue type operations as well?
Yes. Yeah.
Is that part of the Coast Guard practice that you had in addition to law enforcement and doing mechanic work?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Okay. So let me ask you, what are the types of law enforcement things that you did in the Coast Guard?
We did search and rescue. You would go in there, and then if something would arise to that, you know, if rescue turned into a BUI, you know, we did investigations on that. But it
may be obvious, but what's a BUI?
Boating under the influence. We call us water cops, you know, guys on boats, you know, mainly. But it counter drug.
What was that?
Counter drugs.
Counter drugs. Okay.
Yes. Migration or immigration. Assisted Customs and Border Protection, Drug Enforcement Administration, stuff like that.
I'm sorry, assisted who?
Drug Enforcement Administration, Customs and Border Protection.
Okay. Did you ever write violations or citations for people?
I did.
Did you ever work with local law enforcement when you did your law enforcement investigations on the water?
Yes, several times.
So what types of law enforcement agencies would you work with?
So we would work with local and state law enforcement, the sheriff's department it'd be sheriff's department were the two stations I was at, and then also state agencies like Florida Wildlife Commission or Georgia Department of Natural Resources or Mississippi Department of Natural Resources.
What is a high interest vessel?
High interest vessel is it would be like a cruise ship or a vessel with some kind of like a historical importance, something that if somebody will want to do harm would choose that vessel than anything other, make more news, I guess. And then it's also called an HVA, which is a high value asset, which would also be dangerous cargo. In there too.
Did your activities as a Coast Guard officer involve you working with high interest vessels?
Yes.
In what way?
In security, making sure that we would set up zones to make sure that nobody that's wishing to do harm to it or that would impede its movement would get in the way, and we would actually enforce laws. You know, we had arrest powers to make sure that we can accomplish that mission.
Do you remember the name of the law enforcement course that you took at the Law Enforcement Academy?
Yeah, it was basic boarding officer course.
Okay, and what essentially did that training authorize you to do?
It allows us to make, it's called Cs2.
All right, how do you break that down? Cs2, what is
All
that?
right. It's an acronym. It's SEASII.
SEASII. Okay.
There's search.
Yes.
Allows us to make examinations.
Okay.
Arrest.
Yes.
Seize.
Okay.
Inspect.
Okay.
And inquire.
Okay. Seize 2.
Yes.
All right. And can you tell us a little bit about the components of your training that you had under this Seize 2 course?
Yes, so I'll give you, I guess it'd be best if I give you the law that gave
Sure.
me the, all right.
What is the law essentially that authorizes you to be a Coast Guard law enforcement search officer?
So it gave us the arrest powers.
Okay.
And everything involved with that was 14 USC 89 Alpha,
Okay.
which gave Coast Guard officers, petty officers, which I was,
All right.
warrant officers, and reserve of the same on active duty, the right to seize to, search, examine, arrest.
All right, so this here is the code section that gave you the ability to do these
Yeah,
things.
and all vessels in U.S. territorial waters. And,
Okay.
yes.
All right. Did this course have a law component, like a legal component?
It did.
Did the legal component, what did the legal component address?
The heavy one was Fourth Amendment.
All right. And search and seizure, is that what sort of falls under Fourth Amendment?
It did.
Arrest?
Yep.
Okay. And in terms of, did you also deal with the Fifth Amendment?
We did.
Like due process, things of that nature?
Yes.
Okay. Did you learn terms like probable cause or reasonable suspicion?
We did.
Okay. And what was your training about probable cause?
Well, the probable cause definition that we received was the level of suspicion by a reasonable and prudent person.
All right, I'm going to write it down, so hold on. Level of suspicion by a reasonable and prudent person.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Given the overall circumstances.
Given overall circumstances, okay.
To believe that a crime has been committed.
There's no spell check on these things, so I'm not sure how I'm doing just yet. Okay. Let me go back to a component perhaps of training. Did you have a component of your training called use of force?
We did, yes.
All right. Can you tell us what that is?
Yes, so use of force is the level of force needed to compel compliance in the safest manner. And then we had acronyms and everything for that too. We had a use of force continuum.
All right, hold on. All right, so use of force, and you said you have a continuum?
Yes.
What does that mean?
It was it's levels 1 through 6.
I don't know how to spell continuum.
I don't either.
I'm dropping it. Continuum. EM?
And UM.
2 years.
2 U's?
Yes.
We agree on that? 2 U's? We do. The jury's nodding their head. Awesome. All right. So use of force continuum. What is that?
Yeah. So it was drilled into our head. There's 6 levels.
Okay.
And it goes from level 1, which is officer presence.
All right.
I'll just go through all of them.
Okay. What does that mean, officer presence?
Officer presence was what we call showing the flag.
Okay.
Being out there having the flag, the blue lights, just like a cop pulling up on you. You know, you have blue lights, the uniform, his presence, his demeanor, the badge, stuff like that, and it's usually compels compliance. Going to level 1, seeing the police officer or seeing somebody that's in authoritative figure usually is all it has to go to. People
To compel compliance to do what?
whatever is needed or asked from the officer.
Does it include talking?
Yes,
Okay. Or making an arrest?
yes, it can.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, what's the next level?
Level 2 is verbal commands.
Okay, what does that mean? It sounds pretty obvious, but what does that mean?
It was task direction and consequence, I believe. Yes, task direction and consequence.
Okay, so give us just a little bit of a working example of that.
So when you're in active duty or you're in law enforcement function, I would say, Mr. Sheffield, you move to the side for me. And if it didn't work to that, so you move to the side for me, or I will have to move you.
Okay.
Usually, you didn't have to go with that if you can.
Is there a physical component to this, or is it just you're talking?
No, that's it. That's just that's all it is. Verbal command.
With the purpose of obtaining what?
Compliance.
Okay, so that you can do what?
So I can do my job safely and effectively.
Okay, all right. Is it volume dependent, your voice?
Yeah, voice inflection and tone is definitely a key into it. Being on a boat, a shrimp boat or something like that, and there's loud engines and everything. If I have to talk to you, if I'm trying to talk to you like this, you can't hear me, you can get aggravated. But if I speak louder and my voice inflection is, hey, move over there, you might take it as I'm upset, and then this can escalate into something that we don't want. But if I take everything into consideration, go, excuse me, can you move over there for me?
Yeah.
It's you use it every day.
All right, you use the word escalate. Is it your goal to escalate situations?
No, absolutely not.
Why?
Because once you escalate, you don't know where it's going to go from there. You want to keep everybody calm and cool and be able to do whatever task is at hand safely and effectively.
All right. What is the next level after verbal command?
Verbal commands, 3. Control techniques.
All right, what does that mean?
It was anything hands-on, which had a low probability of causing connective tissue damage or injury.
And what's the point of it?
It was if verbal commands didn't work at that point, like if I said earlier, like I will have to move you, it goes to the point where I have to move you, and I control you where I safely can get you to point A to point B, or it also goes into normal application of handcuffs, is to control you, the subject, without any harm to myself or to you.
Okay. What's the next level?
Level 4 was aggressive response techniques.
All right, and what does that mean?
It was kicks, stuns, and punches, and the use of pepper spray, what we call OC.
Okay. And at what point does something like this become necessary?
So we had 2 types of subjects. Probably easier if I said it earlier, but level 1 through 3 would be, so you have passive and aggressive. You have passive compliant and passive resistor, and then active resistor and active aggressor.
You're talking about now you, or you're talking about the person that you're dealing with?
The person that you're dealing with.
All right, so say it again, please. The person that you're dealing with, you have levels,
Yes.
and you categorize them as?
There's passive and aggressive.
Okay.
And then broken into there from level 1 and 2. Level 1 is passive compliant, which would, hey, anything I ask you to, you do it.
That would be me.
That would be you, right?
Okay.
Then passive resistor would be, could go into level 2, level 3. Can you move over there for me? You don't. Can you move over there, or I'll have to move you? And then after I make that, you move. That could be a passive resistor, or if I
would be me with the judge sometimes.
Yes.
Okay.
And then normal application of handcuffs or if I have to put hands on you as a passive resistor.
Okay.
Level 4,
Yes.
it would be the kick, stones, and punches. It would be active aggressor
Okay.
at that point.
Someone who is,
That is trying to cause you harm.
Okay. And what's the next level after 4?
Was intermediate weapons.
Okay. What does that mean?
With what we carried daily was the expandable baton
All right. To be used.
for level 5. If you're coming at me, always, if you come and trying to harm me, you do kicks, stuns, anything like that, I'm authorized to use the baton.
Okay.
And it's to hit meaty portions of the body to cause you to stop from harming me or others.
And then level 6?
Level is deadly force.
Okay. Are you always moving from level 1 to level 6? Is this always moving through that progression?
Yes, it's fluid. It's fluid nonstop. Depends on what you walk into, what occurs during the situation. It can go from level 1 to level 6, or level 1 to level 4, or 4 back to 1. It's just constantly flowing. It depends on the situation and how whoever you're talking to reacts, pretty much.
Okay. I want to talk about the physical side of your training and experience that you've had with this type of thing.
Okay.
Okay? But before I do that, I want to ask you again about de-escalation. And to make sure, de-escalation. As it relates to that continuum, do you have any goals as it relates to de-escalation? As it relates to this use of force continuum?
You want to keep it as minimal as possible. You don't want anything to escalate.
Okay.
If that's
So
what you're asking.
you want the absence of escalation.
That's correct.
Okay. Let's talk about, when you were with the Coast Guard, did you work with a team of others?
Yes.
Okay. And did you and your team ever do training as it related to these types of use of force continuums and search and seizure and arrest?
We did.
Okay. When would you do those?
It was required, minimally, it was required quarterly, which was 4 times a year. 4 times a year.
Okay.
But we'd have so many people, non-rates, which were E1s to E3s before they made rate, would be our boarding team members. And that during that training that I went to at Charleston, I was also a trainer. I was authorized to teach other Coast Guardsmen how to assist into boardings. So we would have new Coast Guards would come into these boats and stations, so we were constantly training. It was probably minimum once a week, sometimes 2-3 times a week. Sometimes we dedicate a whole week to training.
All right.
And it went from physical levels 1 through 5, simulate 6, obviously, to.
Would you practice level 1 officer presence? Or
Yes,
would
and that
you-
was any time that we were on the water was obviously level
Okay.
1.
So I guess my question is, would you practice these various levels?
Yes.
Okay, how would you practice some of these levels that start to get into physicality or higher verbal acuity?
In training?
Yeah.
So in training, we would, going into level 4 or whatever, we would actually have a thing called a red man suit. And we would, Fridays usually, we bring everybody together, and then we would teach the techniques of the proper way to do this, because take a baton and strike somebody in the head, that's obviously deadly force. We do not want that to happen, if, God forbid, if that comes to it. So we have to teach, you strike somebody in a meaty portion of the body, how to properly do this stuff, and the best way to do it is to get out there and do it. So we would do red man training, which these guys would exercise this on each other. Level 4, level 5, we would do handcuffs, practicing normal application of handcuffs. And then the entire time, we're also doing level 1 and 2. And if say me and you were in a scenario that we built a scenario, it depended on, if you were the boarding officer, how you interacted with me would be how I would interact back with you. So if you came in without another acronym we used was called LEAPS.
Okay, what's LEAPS?
It's called listen, empathize,
How are you spelling?
listen.
Yep.
No,
No, I know how you spell listen. I got that one.
Okay.
I got that one. The acronym is?
Oh, LEAPS.
LEAPS.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What's E?
So empathize,
Okay.
ask questions,
Okay.
paraphrase.
All right.
And yes, summarize.
Okay. And you were saying you would use LEAPS in your training? You would
Yes,
teach LEAPS?
yes.
All right.
And that would go to, you go into a situation and you jump on a boat or a scenario like this that you get somebody that's distraught or very upset. Instead of going in, hey, calm down, I'm here to do this. There's other ways to do it. So, hey, what's going on? What's wrong? What happened? Well, then say you explain to me what's happened. My dog just died. You go to emphasize, yeah, I've had that happen too. It sucks. I'm sorry that this has happened. It then goes into.
Is it, you're saying empathize, you
Mhm.
just said emphasize. Did I mishear? Your empathy, is that what you're talking about? Having empathy with somebody?
Yes.
I wrote down empathize, but you just said emphasize. Maybe it was a slip. Okay, but you're saying you would try to share in one's experience?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then ask questions, ask what's going on with it. It pretty much de-arming somebody, and calming them down. Because once again, the whole goal is to de-escalate, keep anything from arriving.
All right, so is it that this can lead to de-escalation?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Have you ever had to use officer presence on the job?
Yes, every day.
Okay.
Every day that we were doing it.
Did you ever use verbal command on the job?
Very much so, yes.
Did you use control technique on the job?
I've had to.
Okay. Did you ever have to use one of your aggressive response technique, using a baton to hit somebody on the meaty portions of their body?
Never had.
Did you ever have to use intermediate
I did not.
or deadly force?
No.
Did you have any training on hand-to-hand combat?
Yes.
Did you have any training on how to retain your weapon?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
So we carry, there's on regular boardings, if it wasn't like I said earlier, an HVA or
HVA being
high value asset,
asset,
which we would stay on the boat. And then we had automatic weapons for that. It's mounted, crew mounted weapons, what they call it. It didn't pertain, but for weapons retention is what we're talking about. We were trained on the personal defense weapon, which is our pistol. We carried an M16, and we also carried an 870 riot shotgun, which is a small 14-inch barrel shotgun.
Okay. And what was the type of training that you had about weapon retention? What was it that you were training one another to do?
It's
Might
how
sound
to,
kinda obvious, but
yes, it's how to keep your weapon from going into the hands of somebody that's trying to take it from you.
is this something that you would practice?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. What is the concern about not retaining your weapon?
That it would, one, that you would not be able to protect yourself in a deadly force situation, and also that somebody taking a weapon from you would use it on you or others.
Did you ever have any special training with a shotgun?
Yes,
Did it include how to retain it?
yes,
Okay. Did it include how to use it to de-escalate a situation?
yes, with any weapon, yeah, it was the same as the other weapons.
And explain that. Explain, how do you use a weapon to de-escalate a situation?
So in a situation like we would consider it in a level 1, which was officer's presence, in certain situations, like if you come on a boat and you had unaccounted for personnel, or they call known safety hazards, which would to have your weapon drawn, and sometimes a third eye, which was right here, or it was readily accessible where you didn't have to take it out of the holster. In those situations, that was still level 1 because it's officer presence. You see somebody with that weapon, that's officer presence. And then also, if you had to draw your weapon on someone other than that, was if there was a reasonable possibility that the use of deadly force may be authorized, which was another key component on that.
All right, tell me about that. A reasonable possibility
Yes.
that deadly force, what?
May be authorized.
Okay. And what does that mean to you?
Means, from the trainer we had, that if you go into a situation that you are not aware of, that you don't know if someone's armed or if they have made threats or made threatening gestures, and you have a weapon, it's obviously holstered or you don't have it out there, and they come towards you or make these threatening gestures, which was closing the deadly force triangle or the attack triangle, then you are authorized to draw that weapon.
All right.
Which would
What
still
is
be-
the attack triangle?
It's subject's actions, weapon, and opportunity.
Okay. Action, weapon,
Yes.
and opportunity. And how does that work?
So say a scenario where you have threatened me. So you're threatening me, you put that under subject's actions. Weapon, what we're taught is everybody has a weapon. Hands, fists are a weapon. So in an attack triangle would be you're threatening me, you are close enough to attack, and then, which is the opportunity, and then obviously you make the threat or you make the gesture that you're going to attack, throw the fist back. That is at that point an attack. The attack triangle is closed, then I can use level, which would be level 4 or level 5 in that situation.
Okay.
And there's also a deadly force triangle, which goes into, which is subject's actions,
Yes, go ahead.
weapon, and opportunity. And then under weapons, maximum effective range, and if it's readily accessible.
You're talking about range. What do you mean by that?
If you have a baseball bat and you're 50 yards away from me, the weapon is no longer, it doesn't close the triangle because the maximum effective range is no longer there. You're not going to harm me with that bat at 50 yards. If you are 50 yards away from me with if I could see a gun on you and you're making the threats, the gestures, then deadly forces triangle is closed.
Okay. I asked you earlier if you have ever been trained to use a firearm to de-escalate a situation. Is that something that you have trained to do? To use it to de-escalate, but not to actually shoot somebody with it?
Well, yeah, that was it. Under level 1, doing the having it out of holster, or having the draw down if needed be, if you thought that deadly force may be authorized.
When you say draw down, what do you mean?
To actually have it pointed at you, or at the subject or anybody that is causing the threat, or that may be the threat at that time.
And when you say draw down and point it at somebody, does that mean that you are in fact going to pull the trigger?
The possibility's there, but obviously you're trying to de-escalate the situation. So,
In your experience, can pointing a gun at somebody de-escalate a situation?
yes.
How so?
If pull a gun on someone, which time they've realized that this is, if it's threat, or if you don't know what's going on in a situation, and you pull a weapon on someone, from what I've learned in my training, that usually that calls people to back off or to realize what's happening, compel compliance.